Okay, sorry about that. Just some technical difficulties back there. Welcome back to episode 9 of the Filmcast with Aiden Lorenzo. I, of course, am Aiden Lorenzo, and if this is your first time here, I highly recommend subscribing for new episodes Thursdays at noon every week or so. And, with that being said, let's get right into today's episode. I hope you all had an amazing Thanksgiving. I know I did. And a lot of movies came out last weekend. Unfortunately, I only saw one of them. And see, I didn't, unfortunately, I didn't get, bleh. Unfortunately, I didn't get the chance to see Strange World or Bones and All or The Fablemans. But I at least, but it's the thought that counts, I guess. Anyways, today I'm going to be looking at a movie that is supposed to come out on Netflix in a couple weeks. Well, actually, the day before Christmas Eve. But I think, but since Netflix decided to be nice and release it le- and give it a little limited release, I got to see it on Sunday. And if you don't know what I'm talking about already, I am referring to Glass Onion, a Knives Out mystery, the sequel to Knives Out. Now, I absolutely love the original Knives Out. I think it's one of the best films to come out in recent memory. But the fact that Lionsgate just decided to dump it onto a streaming service is honestly one of the worst moves I've ever seen a studio do. But I have a feeling that the pandemic had something to do with it. Anyways, this new adventure features Benoit Blanc, played by Daniel Craig, as he's mysteriously invited to a billionaire's private island, and he partakes in another murder mystery. The cast is rounded out by the likes of Edward Norton, Janelle Monáe, Dave Bautista, Kate Hudson, Madeline Klein, Leslie Odom Jr., and Catherine Hahn. And I gotta say, this movie is actually really, really great. Although I will admit it's not as good as the predecessor. For starters, the mystery can get a little convoluted at times, but but it's still particularly enticing. And admittedly, some of the actors don't get a lot to work with here. Jessica Henwick is criminally misused, and Leslie Odom Jr. also doesn't get a lot to work with, but hey, at least they try. And also, Ethan Hawke is in this movie, and when I saw that he got announced for the cast, I was really excited. And then I find out that his part basically adds up to just a cameo. But a little Ethan Hawke can go a long way sometimes. And with that being said, let's get back to the good things I like about this movie. Starting off, the film is, of course, very well written and extremely, extremely well made. And it pretty much proves that Ryan Johnson has single handedly redeemed himself from the failure known as Star Wars The Last Jedi. But more importantly, the cast does great. Yeah, I might have said that Jessica Henwick, Leslie Odom Jr., and Ethan Hawke don't get a lot to work with, but the rest of the cast does absolutely great. I mean, Daniel Craig is as great as ever as Benoit Blanc, and it really gives us a lot more perspective about him. Uh, Edward Norton probably Edward Norton really gives off a major slimy businessman vibe as Miles Braun, the owner of the island that the murder mystery takes place on. Janelle Monáe is really compelling in her role, but if I discussed it further, I'd be going into spoiler territory. Dave Bautista is absolutely hilarious at, as Duke Cody, a YouTube influencer, because if there's one thing that I'd describe Dave Bautista, it's YouTube influencer. Kate Hudson and Madeline Klein do great as a couple of femme fatales in the form of fashion designer Birdie J and Duke's girlfriend, Whiskey, and Catherine Hahn is actually and Catherine Hahn is, of course, as funny as always as the as their senator friend. Not only that, but the cameos are actually really entertaining also. You got Hugh Grant as Benoit Blanc's partner. You got a little voice cameo from Joseph Gordon-Levitt, similar to the predecessor. Plus, you got little phoned in cameos from the likes of Natasha Lyonne, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, and in their final posthumous roles, Angela Lansbury and Stephen Sondheim. So, overall, I highly recommend Glass Onion. It's not as good as the first film, I'm but that's not saying that it's bad either. I consider it as good, but not up to the standards of the first film. Overall, I'd say please give it a watch this holiday season, considering that it's going to be dumping onto Netflix on Christmas Eve, aka December 23rd. Now, let's get into a movie that came out like a little before my. Now let's get into a movie that came out the same day as my last episode. And I'm referring to A Christmas Story Christmas on HBO Max. Now, when I first heard about this movie, I'll admit that I was fairly worried about it. Mainly because, well, A, legacy sequels don't always give off the best vibes. I'm look I'm looking at you, Jurassic World Dominion and The Matrix Resurrections. And also, that title just sounded so stupid. I mean, A Christmas Story Christmas? Why not call it A Christmas Story? Return of Ralphie, or something like that. But as I watched the film on HBO Max, I'll admit that I was genuinely surprised by it. It still captured the heart and charm of the original Christmas Story, and Peter Billingsley is as likable as ever as the now grown-up Ralphie. And also, this film takes place in the 1970s, which I gotta give respect for because they at least tried to modernize it the best that it could without going too modern. Aside from that, the writing is as sharp as ever. The production design is something. The production design is actually pretty decent for a film that was dumped onto HBO Max, and the cast does the best with what they're given. Mainly the original cast members that have returned from the original Christmas Story, and of course, Julie Haggerty as Ralphie's mom. So, overall, I definitely recommend A Christmas Story Christmas for your holiday viewing this season. But if you want a little more of a modern contemporary Christmas classic, then I'd also recommend another film that came out on HBO Max last year, 8 Bit Christmas, starring Neil Patrick Harris, which is about a kid in the 1980s who just really wants an NES. And yeah, that movie is really good, but yeah, that was just a little recommendation if you want to check something out. If you want to check something out aside from A Christmas Story Christmas. Anyways, so this weekend, like I mentioned, a lot of movies came out, and I'm going to talk about them, particularly this weekend's box office. Black Panther: Wakanda Forever topped it again at its third straight weekend. Strange World opened at number 2 to very, very low numbers for a Disney movie. And, and surprisingly, Glass Onion, a Knives Out mystery, managed to get up to third place with $13 million. For a limited release, I gotta say, that's actually quite impressive. However, this honestly represents a big problem with movies these days. You see, all the major tentpole movies, particularly Marvel and DC films like Black Panther: Wakanda Forever and Black Adam, they get tons, and I mean tons, of show times like every day. Yet you also have little Yet you also have like more artistic films like Steven Spielberg's The Fablemans, Luca Guadagnino's Bones and All, Todd Field's Tar, and Martin McDonagh's The Banshees of Inisherin that mainly get like maybe 2, 3 showtimes a day, which I gotta say, this is absolutely ridiculous. I mean, heck, even Halloween Ends and Ticket to Paradise get more screen times than they do. And those have been out for over a month. So, yeah, that was my little rant and on to other things. Anyways, so today is December 1st, which means we are now in the final month of the year, December, where we'll be getting tons and tons of great movies. And here's what to look forward to this month. Starting off tomorrow, we have a new Christmas movie, but more of an actiony Christmas movie. And I'm of course referring to Violent Night, produced by David Leitch, who of course produced John Wick and Nobody, and directed another film that came out this year, Bullet Train. The film follows Santa, played by David Harbour, as he's tasked with taking down a group of assassins led by John Leguizamo, who take a very rich house hostage on Christmas Eve. Judging by the trailer, this is certainly to be very Christmassy and is to be as Christmassy as it is violent, hence the title, Violent Night. And this film is, of course, coming out tomorrow, December 2nd. And I gotta say, this movie actually looks like a lot of fun. Of course, David Harbour plays Santa Claus, which is perfect casting. John Leguizamo as the villain is entertaining. And for all you Christmas movie lovers out there, you get to see Beverly D'Angelo, best known as Ellen Griswold from National Lampoon's Christmas Vacation. Or really, all the vacation movies, if you would. Anyways, so yeah, Violent Night. It's basically Die Hard, but with Santa Claus. But if you are not interested in seeing Violent Night, you'll be pleased to know that Top Gun Maverick is getting a re-release for about 2 weeks, starting tomorrow, December 2nd. Obviously, Top Gun Maverick took the world by storm this summer, pretty much staying on the box office top 10 for literal months, I think until like September. And yeah, overall, if you missed seeing Top Gun Maverick during the long, long time that it has been out in theaters, you'll be glad to know that it is being re released for 2 weeks only, starting tomorrow. And moving on to December 9th, the week after, we have two we have two fairly interesting we have a couple fairly interesting and definitely award-worthy movies. Starting off, we have the latest film from Darren Aronofsky, the acclaimed director behind Requiem for a Dream, The Wrestler, and Black Swan. And that film is the much anticipated A24 film, The Whale, starring Brendan Fraser as a morbidly obese man who tries to reconnect with his daughter, played by Sadie Sink, who you may know from Stranger Things. Now, obviously, it's been a long, long, long time since we saw Brendan Fraser in a lead role, and an even longer time since we had a good leading role from him. And this one is surely to be an awards favorite. That'll probably make you cry. It's been getting tons and tons of recognition from festivals and is sure to be a comeback for the ages for Mr. Brendan Fraser. I mean, the guy has been through a lot, and it's only fair that he truly deserves this comeback. Anyways, you can see The Whale in theaters December 9th. However, if you're looking for any streaming service, if you're looking for any streaming next week, I'm happy to let you know that you get two. Starting off from Netflix, we have Guillermo del Toro's adaptation of Pinocchio, which is entirely in stop motion and features an all star cast, including but not limited to, excuse me for 1 second, features an all star cast, including but not limited to Ewan McGregor, Christoph Waltz, Tilda Swinton, Ron Perlman, Finn Wolfhard, Kate Blanchett, John Turturro, and Tim Blake Nelson. Obviously, Guillermo del Toro is the co-director of the film, with him sharing the credit with Mark Gustafson in his feature directorial debut. The film did get a limited release on November 9th. However, if you want to see it on Netflix, it'll be dropping down on there on December 9th, aka next Friday. And also coming out on December 9th to Apple TV Plus, we have Emancipation, a slavery drama directed by Antoine Fuqua and starring Will Smith. Now, I have heard a lot of praise for his performance, but I'm sorry. I'm not sure if I can ever watch anything with Will Smith anymore, especially after that thing that happened at the Oscars. I'm not telling you what because chances are you probably already know. But for those who would be, interested in seeing it, it hits Apple TV Plus on December 9th. And coming December 16th, I think. Coming December 16th, we have the long awaited Avatar: The Way of Water. The long awaited sequel to Avatar, directed by, of course, James Cameron, and featuring a massive cast. Of course, you have the returning players like Sam Worthington, Zoe Saldana, Stephen Lang, and for some reason, Sigourney Weaver. But you also have some new cast members, including Kate Winslet, this being her first collaboration with James Cameron since Titanic, as well as Edie Falco and Jermaine Clement. And I also forgot to mention that Giovanni Ribisi and Joel David Moore will be returning for this movie. And actually, you guys know that I said that Kate Winslet will be returning. Well, it's actually pretty interesting because after Titanic, she said that she would never work with James Cameron ever again unless if the pay was good enough. In that case, she must have been paid an entire truckload of money to appear in this movie. Anyways, personally, I'm iffy about this movie. It's probably going to look absolutely amazing and could be a comeback for 3D, but I'm not holding out hope for it. I mean, it's a very, very long delayed sequel to a movie that's already very divided. On top of that, it has an absolutely stupidly expensive budget between $350 and $400 million, which, like I said, an absolutely stupidly expensive budget. And considering the fact that 20th Century Fox hasn't produced a real successful film since last year's Free Guy, this could be the movie to sink the studio, and Disney might have to mortgage the theme parks just to recoup the losses. And keep in mind, We still got Avatar 3, 4, and 5. So if this film fails, then this could put the entire Avatar franchise in serious jeopardy. But regardless, if you want to see it, it'll be out on December 16th, 2022. And next up, we have another long awaited sequel, but less long awaited, if you can say that. And that is Puss in Boots: The Last Wish, the sequel to Puss in Boots that we never knew we wanted until now, where Antonio Banderas and Salma Hayek reprised their roles from the original film, Banderas playing Puss in Boots, of course, and Salma Hayek playing Kitty Softpaws, I think her name is. I could be wrong. Apparently, John Mulaney and I think Anya Taylor-Joy are in this movie, but I could be wrong about that. Anyways, actually, Goldilocks and the Three Bears is in this movie, which, of course, carries on the fairy tale trend started by the Shrek franchise and, of course, the first Puss in Boots movie. So, yeah, if you're interested in seeing Puss in Boots: The Last Wish, film will be released on December 21st, 2022. However, it did get a 1-day, very limited release like last weekend. So there's that. And yeah, I'm just hoping that this movie will, of course, be good. And after all, they did have Smash Mouth's All Star in the commercials, so yeah, kind of has to be good. Anyways, rounding out this year, we have two more movies scheduled to come out around Christmas time. First up, we have Damien Chazelle's next film, Babylon, a a just over 3 hour long movie about the beginning of Hollywood, starring Brad Pitt, Margot Robbie, to, bleh, starring Brad Pitt, Margot Robbie, Tobey Maguire, Samara Weaving, Olivia Wilde, Flea, for some reason, among so many others. A lot. I've heard mainly mixed things about it so far, given by what early screenings have shown. Apparently, and judging by the trailers, it's basically the love child of Once Upon a Time in Hollywood and The Wolf of Wall Street. Or better yet, if the Wolf, or better yet, if Once Upon a Time in Hollywood was directed by Baz Luhrmann. Anyways, the film will get a limited release on December 23rd, 2022, before opening wide in January of 2023. And the last film I'll be discussing today is A Man Called Otto, starring Tom Hanks as the titular character Otto, a very grumpy curmudgeon who eventually meets his new neighbors and starts to form a bond with them. In all honesty, I'm not very excited for this movie. Tom Hanks has already given us two crappy performances this year, and I'm not gonna sit through a third. However, if you are interested in seeing glorified Oscar bait, I'll let you know that the film will be released on December 23rd, 2022, with a wide release coming on January 15th, 2023. And that'll be all for today. If you liked this episode, I highly recommend subscribing for weekly episodes every Thursday at noon. And until then, I will see you guys next week with my review of Violent Night. So until then, take care.